Welcome back, ghosts, ghouls, and things that go bump in the night. As someone who lives disturbingly close to a cemetery, I have to say, graveyard stories are always my cup of tea. So, when I came across this lovely tale from a gravedigger themselves, how could I pass it up? So, why don't you sit back, relax, and tune in, for Gravedigging Can Be a Pain. Being a live-in caretaker, or gravedigger, like the cool kids typically term it, for a historic cemetery that's been part of our community since colonial times isn't all glitz and glamour. Every so often, it can be a genuine pain in the neck. Well, more like a pain in the lower back, but still. You'd think it'd be pretty cut and dry. Dig graves, bury people, throw away wilted flowers, pick up trash, rake the leaves, keep the grass cut, and lock the gate every night. Sounds easy, right? Well, let me tell you, it is not even close to the whole truth. Every once in a while, it can become an enormous hassle. When I accepted this job, there wasn't a useful handbook that outlined your duties as other jobs have. I had a grizzled elderly supervisor who had buried more people than the Black Plague. You would think someone like that would be a wellspring of information, merely waiting to be tapped. Well, you keep on thinking that. He maintained a firm belief that the best experience was a hands-on experience. I would spend all day finishing a hot and muscle-straining job. Then that night, he would inform me of the easier way to do it. When I say I learned my lessons well, it's because I learned how not to perform them first. To my old boss, any day that you keep all your fingers and toes was a good day. But he wasn't all bad. His stories were the best. I remember after work, I would sit for hours listening to him. He could make you pee your pants with his stories. Be it either a scary or a funny story, you could wet yourself from either fear or laughter. Some stuff, like general yard work, mowing grass, trimming bushes, weed treatment, and pest control, is simple. Most of it should be done on a weekly basis to maintain the cemetery in its pristine condition. To prevent overlapping, you designate specific days for each section of the cemetery. And always remember to exercise caution when performing upkeep in Section 1, as it contains some of our oldest graves. These duties are so straightforward, even a child could understand them. These are also the duties they use when advertising the job. I'll let you in on a little secret, though. These represent about 20% of the overall jobs I perform. One of the big requirements is you always should remember your manners. Respect all mourners. The cemetery receives visitors daily, who should be given distance while they pay their respects. Avoid using loud equipment and or tools entirely in that section while a funeral is in session. With that in mind, new plots are to be dug at least 24 hours before scheduled funerals. However, 3 days is preferred. New graves have a tendency to whisper. But after 2 days, those voices usually fall silent. If you do hear them, it's best to disregard them, since they tend to ramble on and on about nothing but nonsense. They may have eternity, but I work on a schedule. Now, let's not forget about the different protocols. If we discover any sign of vandalism, we are to document the incident and report it to the main office. They will evaluate the proper procedures. If the gravestones themselves are disturbed or broken, report it and mark off the area. Repairmen will be dispatched to correct the problem. Do not disturb them as they work. They are fickle. I think it's because they only work the night shift. Besides, they are blind and mute, so the conversations are pretty one-sided. Now, if you want a lively conversationalist, go talk to Tim. He's worked here since we only had one section. He's the best cobbled together group of people you'll ever meet. The only problem I have with the big guy is he eats black licorice continuously, and when he talks to you, it's all you can smell. Most people don't have a problem with it, but I just don't like black licorice. I've tried providing him with different candies, but he refuses them. I even offered him various licorice flavors, but he repeatedly says,
"Those taste like medicine."
Yeah, obviously it does. You killed your taste buds with years of eating that sickeningly sweet black licorice. I'm surprised you can taste anything. If you ever see him, he looks like he has a jaw full of tobacco. But it's not. It's licorice. Other than that, he's a great guy. He'd give the shirt off his back. If you ever need help, he's always there to lend a hand. Naturally, he will be needing it back after you're finished. Another unspoken rule is under no circumstances should you read aloud the Latin and Coptic phrases carved into the headstones in sections 2 and 4. Of course, historians always find their way through sections 1 through 4. That's where the prettiest and oldest graves and headstones are located. And guess who gets to clean up the mess they create by reciting an ancient motto or creed while reading aloud the names carved into the stone? I don't understand why the cemetery doesn't limit what can and can't be on the gravestones and markers. I have asked, but nobody knows. I guess we're an equal opportunity cemetery. I also guess common sense isn't extremely common. I know what you're thinking. If you don't do that, you should be okay. And you're mostly right. Except that isn't the only problematic area in the cemetery. If you're in section 3 and encounter a pale woman with a noose around her neck standing motionless amongst the headstones, it's best not to engage her. Merely continue doing whatever you're doing like she isn't there. If you have any, spread some sea salt around. Ignore any weeping or cackling you might hear in this section. We maintain 12 sections around our cemetery. Section 1, the original cemetery, dates back to before the town of Present was officially founded. We have the distinction of having a founder of our town in the northwest corner of Section 1. You can't miss it. The town many years ago decided to erect a statue on the grave in his honor. It's a nice 12-foot marble effigy. He stands there as he watches over the cemetery, and it really is quite charming. We also have the unfortunate distinction of having hounds. I can describe them as being medium to large-sized dogs. There are 7 of them in total that come in 2 colors. They're either pure white with dull red eyes or near black with yellow eyes. I call them royal pains. They tend to stay in sections 1 to 7 because they enjoy the taste of older bones, but they sometimes visit the other 5 sections. Every morning after a night of prowling, I have the pleasure of picking up trash from overturned garbage cans, scattered vases, and flower arrangements. But the big cherry on top of it all is finding all the bones they dug up. These nuisances will dig up a grave and then carry off a choice bone, gnaw on it for a while, and then just leave it lying. Then, like an Easter egg hunt from my youth, I have to find all of them. And if I miss one, you can bet whoever lost it will let me know it's gone. I remember last year, I spent a week searching through the mud in the small pond in section 4, looking for a single finger bone. I can only guess one hound wanted to have a swim and dropped it. Thankfully, they only come out a few times a month. With all these different things happening inside the tall brick-walled cemetery with a double iron locked gate, we must have a large turnover in our workforce. Certainly not. Sure, a blister or sore muscle is part and parcel of the profession. I carry muscle ointment and adhesive bandages in my pocket every day. Really, the worst most will experience are lacerations, concussions, contusions, tinnitus, cantonitis, partial blindness, festering lesions, amputations, memory loss, and sometimes bouts of violent psychosis, or even a stray possession. Truth be told, those things could theoretically happen with any job. When I think about it, I must make this job sound like the worst thing ever. It's not really. Every job has its good and bad points. Besides, my job is really important. It's an essential job for society. I understand that the average person holds fire, police, ambulance, and healthcare workers in high regard. They keep you from seeing the ugly parts of life. Well, don't forget, it's my job to take the final product of that ugly part, the dead, decaying, disease-ridden carcasses, and dispose of them properly. I'm the reason why you walk down the street without ever having to walk over decomposing bodies, nor do you ever have to see the rotten end product. I wouldn't have another job. It's just, sometimes the grind gets to me. Take, for instance, this task I just completed. I let the last of the soil fall into the shovel from the patch of newly disturbed land. I say a little prayer, silently. Unquestioningly, this time I have made it deep enough. The first time I'd buried Mr. Dietz, it was just another job. Dug a hole, hosted a ceremony, filled in the hole, end of story. Ordinary stuff. This time, the third time, I'd made the grave much deeper and the sweat poured off my body. I wiped my brow with my handkerchief, planted my shovel in the ground, and leaned heavily on it. I don't mind giving our dearly departed a proper burial, even twice sometimes. But 3 is really pushing my patience. I have other jobs and responsibilities. I do not have time to replant people who don't take the hint that they are not of this world anymore. Some people can be so cantankerous. The moon is just now peeking over the trees. My lantern gives just enough light to work by, but not enough to disrupt anyone. I gaze at the world going to sleep around me and stand in awe of the moonlight over the frosty fields of graves. This is such a pleasant, peaceful area. Nothing and no one around. Only the headstones in your thoughts. I watch as the glowing orbs rise higher into the sky, illuminating it with almost an eerie, deep glow. The delightfully cool air feels good after a job well done. Nighttime is always nice, I say to no one in particular, especially clear moonlit nights like tonight. The moon casts a soft silver ray on everything. The beauty is surely unspeakable. The whole of nature looks bright and appears in celestial light. People of all ages enjoy a moonlit night. I take in this majestic moonscape as an ample reward for me completing this necessary task. The night air feels good on my overheated body. Minutes pass as I stand transfixed by nature as I gather my strength. I was so enchanted that I didn't notice the dirty hand break through the fresh dirt. Hearing a noise, I look down. That's it. 3rd time's the charm. I'm done. This guy just doesn't get it. You're gone, dude. Your family has accepted it. Society has accepted it. We mourned and celebrated your life. Now it's over. You have been granted your eternal rest. Life has left you behind, so you may return to the dust. But to receive this reward, you need to stay put. No relocating, no cross-country trip, no plane, train, or automobile ride. Just a nice, long stay in a box underground. I squat down closer to the mound of dirt being broken open and say, Mr. Dietz, guess who has an appointment with the crematorium? And that, listeners, is why grave digging can be a pain. I don't know about the rest of you, but I think I needed that story this week. I know it's a slight departure from our usual stories, but I really hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you'd be interested in hearing more stories like this in the future. But I do have to say, I'm pretty happy that the cemetery behind my house isn't that active. Who knows? Maybe one day we'll get lucky too. Well, if you live by a cemetery that has these kinds of goings on, I'd love to hear about it. Why don't you send me an email at hauntedhorrorstorian@gmail.com or find me on Facebook at Haunted Horrorstorian Podcast. You can even hit me up on Tumblr if that's more your thing. You can find me under Haunted Horrorstorian there too. Until next time, listeners, stay spooky, and remember, sometimes it's more than just a story.